The stars looked peaceful through the observation window of the Cheonsa 7. Captain Tai Sung stood with his coffee, watching the purple and blue clouds of the nebula stretch across the darkness. His ship was small, just a research vessel with 23 people aboard. Scientists mostly, with a few engineers and his tiny command crew. Some had even brought their families. It was supposed to be a safe mission, mapping energy patterns in unexplored space. Hana walked onto the bridge, checking her data pad. She was Taesung's second in command, efficient and always 3 steps ahead of problems. "The readings are getting stranger," she said. "Woojin thinks there might be some kind of spatial anomaly deeper in the nebula." Taesung nodded. Woojin was their best engineer, brilliant with anything that involved numbers and machines. "Tell him to keep monitoring. We'll maintain distance for now." But the universe had other plans. The alarm started screaming 5 minutes later. Daehyun, their navigator, shouted from his station, "Captain!" Multiple contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. "They're surrounding us." Taesung's coffee cup hit the floor. "Battle stations?" "Hana, get everyone to the safe rooms." "Daehyun, plot an escape course now." Through the window, shapes emerged from the nebula. Ships. Dozens of them, dark and angular, with strange glowing symbols on their hulls. They moved with purpose, forming a perfect cage around the Cheonsa 7. "They're hailing us," said Daehyun, his voice shaking. "Put it through." The main screen flickered. A creature appeared, nothing like any human had seen before. Its skin was gray and rough like stone. 4 eyes blinked independently. When it spoke, the translation software struggled to keep up. "Primitive vessel, you have entered claimed space of the Vrelix hierarchy. Your ship and crew are now property of the hierarchy. Disable your engines and prepare to be boarded." Taesung felt ice in his stomach. "This is a civilian research vessel from Earth. We mean no harm." "We'll leave your space immediately." The creature's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. It might have been a smile. "Earth? We have not heard of this world." "It does not matter. You are slow, weak. Your technology is inferior. You will work in our colonies until you die. This is the way." "Like hell," Hana whispered beside him. Taesung agreed. But what could they do? The Cheonsa 7 had no weapons. It was a science ship. Daehyun jumped to faster than light. "Now, trying, Captain. They're jamming our systems." A pulse of blue energy washed over the ship. Every light went dark. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, but the damage was done. The engines were dead. Life support was running on backup. Communications were down. "They hit us with an electromagnetic pulse," Woojin's voice came through the internal comm. "I can fix it, but I need time." Time they didn't have. The boarding began 10 minutes later. Magnetic clamps attached to the hull with heavy thuds. Cutting torches burned through the airlock doors. Taesung gathered everyone in the main cargo bay. Medical Officer Ji-woo stood with the families, trying to keep the children calm. There were 7 kids aboard, the youngest only 5 years old. "Stay together," Taesung told them. "Don't fight them. We'll find a way out of this." The doors exploded inward. The creatures that entered were massive, nearly 3 meters tall, wearing armor that looked like it was grown rather than built. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Behind them came the one from the screen, Commander Thexrel. He walked through the humans like they were insects, studying them. When he grabbed young researcher Bora by the arm, she cried out. He lifted her easily, examining her like a specimen. "Fascinating," Thexrel said. "Heavy gravity world inhabitants. Dense bone structure. Excessive muscular development for their size. They might survive the deep mines after all." Hana moved forward. "Don't touch her!" A guard slammed the butt of his weapon into Hana's stomach. She went down hard, gasping. But when the guard turned away, she was already getting back up. Blood on her lip, fury in her eyes, Thexrel noticed. Resilient too. Good. The weak ones die too quickly. They were dragged to a transport ship that stank of fear and chemicals. The cargo hold was dark and cold. The humans huddled together, sharing warmth. Taesung counted heads. Everyone was alive, but bruised and terrified. "Captain," Woojin whispered. "Before they fried our systems, I did something." "What?" "I sent a message. Direct beam, tight band, maximum power. Straight to Earth Defense Network." Taesung's heart jumped. "Did it get through?" "I don't know. The pulse hit right as I was transmitting. Maybe yes, maybe no. If it did, they'll know what happened. They'll know where we are." Ji-woo, who had been treating Hana's injuries, looked up. "But we're weeks from Earth, even at maximum speed. By the time anyone could get here, I know, said Taesung, but he forced confidence into his voice. But Earth doesn't abandon its people. If the message got through, they'll come. In the darkness of the transport ship racing away from the nebula toward some unknown prison, the humans held onto hope. They didn't know if anyone had heard Wu Jin's desperate signal. They didn't know if rescue was possible across such vast distances. But somewhere, in the deep black between stars, their message was traveling at the speed of light. Far away, on a military station orbiting Earth, Admiral Kyung-soo was finishing his daily reports when the alert came through. Priority Alpha, distress signal. Civilian vessel. He pulled up the message. The data was corrupted, broken by interference, but enough came through. Coordinates, hostile contact. A simple plea recorded in Wu Jin's shaking voice. They're taking us. Send help. Kyung-soo didn't hesitate. His fingers moved across the command console, entering authorization codes that hadn't been used in decades. Protocol Apex 7. Full fleet mobilization. Within minutes, alarms were sounding across every human military installation in the solar system. Ships that had been in dock for maintenance were pulled into active duty. Crews were recalled from leave. Weapons that had never been fired in anger were loaded and armed. The orders were simple and absolute. Civilians had been taken by hostile forces. The Terran Defense Fleet would respond with overwhelming force. They would retrieve their people. And they would make sure the galaxy understood one simple truth. You don't take humans. As Admiral Kyung-soo watched the first battleships begin their burn toward the assembly point, he thought about those 23 people, somewhere in the dark, probably scared and hurt. He made a silent promise to them. We're coming. Hold on. We're coming. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened Earth's children. The fleet came together like pieces of a weapon being assembled. Ships arrived from every corner of human space, burning hard toward the rally point Admiral Kyung-soo had designated. From Mars came the heavy cruisers, their hulls painted red with the dust of humanity's first colony. From Europa Station came the ice-white destroyers, built in the frozen shipyards beneath Jupiter's moon. From the belt came fast attack craft, small and mean, piloted by miners who knew how to fight in 3 dimensions. Admiral Kyung-soo stood on the bridge of the Baekdu, the flagship of Earth's defense force. The ship was massive, 2 kilometers of armor and weapons. Built after humanity's first encounter with hostile aliens had taught them a hard lesson. The universe was not friendly, and kindness was often mistaken for weakness. Captain Young Mi appeared on the communication screen. She commanded the carrier group, 5 massive ships loaded with fighters and bombers. Her face was set in hard lines. Admiral, the Incheon's pride and our escorts are in position. All fighter wings are ready. Just give the word. Patience, Young Mi. We move together or not at all. Another screen lit up. Commander Sung Ho, young but deadly smart, reported from his stealth frigate. His ship was one of the experimental models, covered in materials that bent sensor beams around them like water around a stone. Silent running group is ready. We'll go in first, mark the targets, make them think they're safe. Good, said Kyung-soo. Colonel Jae-hee, what's the status of the Marines? A scarred face appeared. A woman who had fought in the border wars and carried the marks to prove it. My people are loaded and ready, Admiral. Drop pods are armed. We'll burn through their hull like it's paper. Kyung-soo allowed himself a small smile. His fleet was the largest humanity had ever assembled. 42 capital ships, 117 support vessels, 3 full marine divisions, and enough firepower to crack a planet. All for 23 people. Some of his officers had questioned it. Was it worth the risk, the cost? Kyung-soo's answer had been simple. If we won't mobilize everything we have to save 23 civilians, then what are we defending? Numbers don't matter. They're ours and we're bringing them home. Now his fleet was ready. Navigation had plotted the course. They would drop out of faster-than-light travel right on top of the target, using the radiation from a dying star to mask their approach until the last possible moment. The Vrelics would never see them coming. All ships, Kyung-soo said into the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Kyung-soo. We are going to get our people back. We are going to show these aliens what happens when they mistake our peace for weakness. We are human. We protect our own. Now let's go to war. The fleet jumped, tearing a hole in space and vanishing into faster-than-light travel. Meanwhile, thousands of light-years away, the prisoners from the Cheonsa 7 were learning what it meant to be property of the Vrelics hierarchy. The prison station orbited a dying red star, A massive structure built from the bones of destroyed ships and the labor of enslaved species. Inside, the air was too hot and too thin. The gravity was wrong, pulling at bodies in ways that made humans feel sick. The guards were cruel because they could be, because no one had ever successfully escaped, because resistance was met with violence. Taesung and his crew were thrown into a holding cell with prisoners from a dozen other species. Creatures with scales, with feathers, with skin that changed colors, all of them broken, defeated, waiting to be sorted and shipped to whatever hell the Vrelics had chosen for them. But the humans were different. On the second day, when a guard came to take young Bora for processing, Hana moved. She was fast, faster than the alien expected. Her hand closed around the guard's weapon. They fought for it, 3 seconds of brutal struggle. The guard outweighed her by 100 kilograms, but Hana had grown up on Earth, where gravity pulled harder and evolution had made humans into efficient predators. She almost won. It took 3 more guards to pull her off, and even then she left one bleeding from a broken mandible. They beat her for it, in front of everyone, making an example. When they threw her back into the cell, bloody and barely conscious, Taesung held her. "That was stupid," he whispered. "Had to try," Hana coughed. "Had to show them we're not weak." The other prisoners watched with new eyes. These humans, these small creatures from an unknown world, they still had fight in them. Jiwoo, their medical officer, examined Hana with gentle hands. "Broken ribs. Maybe 3. Concussion, definitely. You need rest. Later," Hana said. "Right now we need a plan." And so they planned. Quietly, in whispers, while the guards weren't watching. Woo Jin studied the walls, the doors, the energy conduits running through the ceiling. Everything was a puzzle to him, and every puzzle had a solution. The locking mechanism runs on a wireless signal. If I can build an interference generator, I can scramble it. With what materials? Taesung asked. Woo Jin smiled, holding up the small datapad they'd been allowed to keep. With this. And patience. Daehyun, meanwhile, listened to the guards. The translation software in his neural implant was good, picking up languages and patterns. He learned that this station was a hub, a collection point for slaves from 20 systems. He learned that the Vrelics considered themselves untouchable, the apex species of this region. He learned that no one had ever mounted a rescue operation here. "They think they're safe," Daehyun reported. "They think we're alone." "We're not alone," Taesung said with certainty he didn't entirely feel. "Earth hurt us. They're coming." The other prisoners listened to these strange humans talk about rescue like it was certain, like their people would cross the galaxy for them. It seemed like madness, but then Bora said something that made everyone pause. On Earth, there's an old saying. We learned it in school. No one gets left behind. It's what human soldiers say. It's what we believe. An old prisoner, a creature with 6 legs and tired eyes, spoke up. "We said things like that too once, before the Vrelics came, before we learned that the strong take what they want. Maybe," said Jiwoo, wrapping bandages around Hana's ribs, "but humans are from a death world, a planet that tried to kill us for millions of years. We learned to be stubborn. We learned to be dangerous. And we learned that together, we're stronger than anything that hunts us." The guards didn't notice the change in the humans. They didn't see the way Woo Jin was carefully disassembling his datapad, salvaging components. They didn't notice Daehyun memorizing their patrol patterns. They didn't realize that Hana's beating had only made the others more determined. The Vrelics had made a critical mistake. They had taken humans and expected them to break. Instead, they were building something dangerous. Hope, anger, a plan, and far away, getting closer every hour. A fleet of warships was burning through space at speeds that would have killed most species from the acceleration alone. Admiral Kyungsoo stood on his bridge, watching the countdown timer tick towards 0. Youngmi prepared her fighter squadrons. Songho checked his stealth systems one more time. Colonel Jae-hee inspected every weapon, every piece of armor, every Marine under her command. They were coming. And when they arrived, the Vrelics hierarchy was going to learn a lesson that would echo through the galaxy. You don't take humans. And if you do, they will come for them. With everything they have, with no mercy. With the fury of a species that evolved on a world that taught them only one rule: survive no matter what it takes. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, appearing in the system like ghosts materializing from nothing. The dying red star ahead of them pulsed with radiation, and hidden in that chaos of energy, the prison station hung in orbit. Commander Thexral was drinking when the alarm started. He dropped his cup, watching the displays light up with contacts. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. Ships of a design his computers didn't recognize, arranged in formations that spoke of military precision. "What is this?" he demanded. "Where did they come from?" His sensor officer was frantically working the controls. "Unknown, Commander. They used the star's radiation to mask their approach. By the time our sensors detected them, they were already here. Identify them." "Scanning now." "Commander, the energy signatures match the primitive vessel we captured. These are humans. They came for their people." Thexral felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear. "How many ships?" "Over 150, Commander. And they're launching fighters. Hundreds of fighters. Raise shields. Alert the fleet. Get me reinforcements." But the humans weren't waiting. They attacked. The first salvo came from Admiral Kyungsu's battleships. Railgun rounds, simple metal slugs accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The Vrelics had shields designed to deflect energy weapons, lasers, and plasma. They had never encountered kinetic weapons moving at such speeds. The rounds punched through shields like they weren't there. They tore through armor. They turned Vrelic ships into expanding clouds of debris. In the first 30 seconds of the battle, the humans destroyed 12 warships without losing a single vessel. "Target their weapon platforms," Kyungsu ordered calmly. "Captain Youngmi, launch all fighters. Commander Sung Ho, your stealth group will eliminate their communication arrays. I want them blind and confused." The fleet moved like a machine, each part working in perfect harmony. This was what they trained for. This was what human military doctrine was built on. Overwhelming force, perfect coordination, and the willingness to close distance and fight at ranges that would terrify most species. Young Mi's fighters swept through space like angry hornets. The pilots strapped into cockpits that pulled 7, 8, 9 times Earth gravity during maneuvers, executed attack patterns that would kill most aliens. Human bodies, dense with muscle and reinforced by evolution on a heavy gravity world, could survive accelerations that would turn other species into paste. Pilot Si Jin led his squadron in a direct assault on a Vrelix destroyer. "Hawk Squadron on me. We're going through their point defense." "Through it," his wingman called back. "Si Jin, that's suicide. Only if we're slow. Kick your engines to maximum. Follow my lead." They burned straight at the enemy ship, weapons blazing. The Vrelix point defense systems opened fire, filling space with energy blasts. 3 human fighters died, but the rest made it through, flying so close to the destroyer's hull that their shields scraped metal. They released their missiles at point-blank range and peeled away. The destroyer exploded, torn apart from the inside. "Hawk Squadron," Si Jin called out, breathing hard from the G-forces. "Good kill. Next target." On the prison station, the humans felt the impacts before they heard the alarms. The whole structure shook. Emergency lights flickered on. Guards ran through the corridors, shouting in their harsh language. Tae-sung stood up. "That's weapons fire. Someone's attacking." "Earth," Hannah said, getting to her feet despite her broken ribs. "It has to be Earth." The other prisoners pressed against the cell doors, trying to see what was happening. Explosions lit up the darkness outside the viewports. Ships were dying, their reactors going critical and washing the station in brief, terrible light. Wu Jin pulled out the makeshift device he'd been building for 3 days. If there was ever a time to try this, it's now. He pressed the device against the door lock. It sparked, smoked, and then the door slid open with a hiss. The humans poured out of their cell. Other prisoners watched in shock as these small creatures, barely half the size of the guards, began moving through the station. They had no weapons, but they had something else. They had fury. When the first guard came around the corner, Hannah hit him low and hard. The Vrelix was larger, stronger, but Hannah knew how to fight. Every human did. Their world had taught them. She went for weak points, joints, eyes, the soft tissue under the jaw. The guard went down and Hannah took his weapon. "Move," Tae-sung shouted. "To the command center. Free everyone you find." They ran through the corridors and more prisoners began to emerge. Species that had given up hope watched humans fight with a desperation that bordered on madness. It was contagious. It reminded them that they too had once been free, once been proud. The liberation had begun from inside, even as the battle raged outside. Colonel Jae-hee's Marines hit the station moments later. Their drop pods burned through space like meteors, slamming into the hull and cutting through with plasma torches. The Marines emerged in full combat armor, massive suits of metal and composite materials that made them look like mechanical demons. The Relic's guards tried to fight. They died quickly. Marines moved through the station with brutal efficiency, two-person teams covering each other, advancing methodically. When they encountered resistance, they eliminated it. When they found prisoners, they secured them. Sergeant Minseo found the first group of human prisoners. They were armed with stolen weapons covered in blood and bruises, defending a group of alien children from 3 Relic's guards. "Marines," Hana shouted when she saw them. "About damn time!" Minseo's helmet speakers crackled. "Ma'am, are you all right? Do we look all right?" Hana laughed, slightly hysterical. "We've been prisoners for a week, but we're alive and we're fighting." "Then let's finish this fight," Minseo said. She raised her rifle and fired 3 times. The Relic's guards dropped. "Colonel, this is Sergeant Minseo. I've found the Cheonsa 7 survivors. They're armed and dangerous." "Good," came Colonel Jahee's voice. "Tell them to keep it up. We're sweeping the station. Any guard who surrenders will be detained. Any guard who fights dies." The Marines pushed deeper into the station, and behind them came Tae-sung and his crew. Ji-woo immediately began treating injured prisoners, human and alien alike. Woo-jin found the station's control room and began shutting down defensive systems. Dae-hyun worked with the Marines to coordinate the evacuation. Outside, the battle was turning into a massacre. The Vrelic's reinforcements had arrived, confident in their numbers. They found themselves facing human warships that fought with a ferocity they couldn't match. Commander Thexral watched his fleet die. He sent the surrender signal. "Stop, we yield!" "Stop the attack." Admiral Kyung-soo's face appeared on his screen. The human's eyes were cold, empty of mercy. "Your surrender is accepted. You will be detained for trial. Your ships will be impounded, and every single prisoner on that station will be freed. If you resist, we will continue this battle until your entire fleet is debris." Thexral looked at the display showing his losses. Half his ships were gone. The station was compromised. He had lost. "We agree to your terms," he said, tasting the bitterness of defeat. "Then power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded," Kyung-soo said. "And Commander? You should have left our people alone." The screen went dark. As human ships began docking with the station, as Marines secured the facility, as medical teams started evacuating thousands of prisoners, Captain Tae-sung stood at a viewing port and watched the Earth fleet surrounding them like protective guardians. "They came," he said quietly. Hana stood beside him, her arm in a sling. "Of course they came. We're human. That's what we do." Around them, prisoners from 100 worlds watched the humans work with something like awe. These small creatures from their unknown death world had crossed the galaxy to save their own. And in doing so, they had freed everyone else too. The galaxy was learning. When you took humans, they came for you. With overwhelming force, with perfect fury, with the certainty of a species that had never learned how to quit. High Admiral Velcroth of the Vrelic's hierarchy received the distress call from Commander Thexral with disbelief. The humans, those primitive creatures from an unknown world, had attacked? Impossible. His battle group was the pride of the hierarchy. 20 warships, including his flagship, the Dominion's Will, a vessel 3 kilometers long and capable of cracking moons. "Increase speed to maximum," he ordered his crew. "We will crush these upstart mammals and remind the galaxy why the Vrelic's rule this sector." His sensor officer looked nervous. "High Admiral, the reports from the station indicate significant human forces. Perhaps we should request additional support." Velcroth's 4 eyes fixed on the officer with contempt. "Are you afraid of primitives? They may have surprised Thexral with some crude weapons, but we are the hierarchy's finest. We will teach them their place." The battle group dropped out of faster-than-light travel, expecting to find a ragged battle. Instead, they found hell waiting for them. The human fleet had reorganized after taking the station. They weren't scattered or celebrating their victory. They were ready, formed up in battle lines that spoke of centuries of military evolution. When Velcroth's ships appeared, the humans didn't hesitate. They attacked immediately. Admiral Kyung-soo watched the enemy arrive on his displays. New contacts. 20 ships, including 1 capital vessel. "Captain Young-mi, keep your fighters close to the station. Commander Sung-ho, take your stealth group and hit their supply ships. I want them stranded here. Everyone else, battle formation Delta. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten Earth." The Beck dude turned to face the Dominion's Will. 2 massive ships, both designed to dominate battlefields, heading straight for each other. Velcroth laughed when he saw it. One human ship challenging him? Target that vessel. All weapons. Destroy it. The Dominion's will opened fire. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes crossed the space between the ships. The Bekdu's shields flared, absorbing massive amounts of energy. Alarms rang on the bridge as damage control teams rushed to reinforce weakening sections. Return fire, Kyungsu said calmly. All railguns sustained barrage. Nuclear missiles pattern alpha. The Bekdu shook as its weapons fired. Railgun rounds tore through space at incredible speeds. Nuclear-tipped missiles followed, each one carrying warheads measured in megatons. The Dominion's will's shields held against the first impacts, but the sustained barrage began to overwhelm them. Velcroth felt his ship shudder. What kind of weapons are these? His weapons officer was staring at his displays in shock. Hi, Admiral. They're using kinetic weapons combined with nuclear devices. Our shields weren't designed for this kind of assault. They're primitive weapons, but effective at these masses and speeds. Primitive? Velcroth roared. Then why are we taking damage? All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel. But the other human ships weren't idle. They moved in, supporting their flagship, creating overlapping fields of fire that turned space into a death trap. Vrelix ships died, not from single killing blows, but from sustained assault that overwhelmed their defenses. Young Mi's fighters danced through the battle, targeting the smaller Vrelix vessels. They flew attack patterns that seemed impossible, pushing their ships and their bodies to limits that would kill other species. When a fighter took damage, the pilot didn't retreat. They pressed forward, using their dying ship as a weapon if necessary. Pilot Sejin's fighter lost shields and took a direct hit that tore away half his port wing. Control, this is Hawk Leader. I'm damaged but mobile. Continuing attack. Hawk Leader, you're leaking atmosphere. Return to carrier for repairs. Negative. I still have weapons and there's still targets. I can make a difference. That was the human way. Every individual ready to sacrifice if it meant protecting others. On the prison station, the freed humans helped evacuate prisoners. Jiwoo worked beside alien medical staff she'd been training, treating injuries from species she'd only read about in textbooks. Her hands were sure, her voice calm, even as the station shook from nearby weapons impacts. We need to move these patients to the evacuation ships, she told Marine Corporal Hyunwoo. Yes, ma'am. My squad will secure the route. You keep saving lives. They worked together, human and alien, military and civilian, all focused on the same goal. Get everyone to safety. Woo Jin was in the station's control room with technician Cha, another civilian who had turned out to have a gift for alien computer systems. Together they were doing something audacious. Can we really hack into their entire communication network? Cha asked. We can try, Woo Jin said, his fingers flying across alien controls he'd learned to read in days. If we broadcast what happened here, if the galaxy sees the hierarchy for what it really is, maybe we prevent this from happening to others. They broke through the security systems and began uploading footage. The battle, the liberation, the thousands of enslaved beings freed by human intervention. It spread across Vrelix networks and beyond, reaching worlds that had never heard of Earth. The galaxy watched, and they understood. Back in space, the battle reached its climax. The Dominion's will and the Bekdu had been trading blows for 20 minutes, an eternity in space combat. Both ships were damaged, leaking atmosphere, running on emergency power in sections, but neither would yield. High Admiral, his second-in-command said urgently, we've lost half our fleet. The humans are destroying us. We should withdraw. Velcroth looked at the human flagship. It was still there, still fighting, despite damage that should have forced it to retreat. These humans, they didn't know when to quit. It made them dangerous. No, he decided. We will ram them. Full speed. Prepare for collision. On the Bekdu, the sensors officer shouted a warning. Admiral, the enemy flagship is on collision course. Impact in 90 seconds. Kyungsu felt time slow down. He could order evasive maneuvers. They could survive. But if the Dominion's will survived, if it reached the station full of evacuating prisoners, hold course, he said. All weapons target their engines. Everything we have now. The Bekdu fired every weapon it had left. Railguns superheated from sustained fire. Missile tubes emptied completely. Energy weapons drained power reserves to dangerous levels. The barrage hit the Dominion's will like the fist of an angry god. The Vrelix flagship's engines exploded. The massive ship, already moving at high speed, lost control. It tumbled, spinning through space, unable to correct its course. Now evasive maneuvers, Kyung-soo ordered. The Baekdu pulled hard to port, thrusters firing at maximum. The Dominion's will missed them by less than a kilometer, still burning, still dying. It drifted into the system's asteroid belt and exploded when its reactor went critical. Velcroth died believing his species was superior. He was wrong. The remaining Vrelic ships surrendered immediately. Commander Thexeral, watching from his detention cell on the station, felt something he'd never experienced before. Shame. His people had been so certain of their superiority. They had enslaved worlds without consequence. They had thought themselves untouchable. The humans had proven them wrong in the most brutal way possible. As the battle ended, Admiral Kyung-soo limped his damaged flagship back to the station. Youngmi's fighters formed an honor guard around it. Commander Sung-ho's stealth ships reappeared, their mission successful. Colonel Jae-hee reported that every prisoner was accounted for and being treated. Admiral, his communication officer said, "We're receiving messages from across the sector. Other species asking about us, asking for help against the Vrelics. Sir, what do we tell them?" Kyung-soo looked out at the fleet around him. Damaged but unbroken, victorious. Tell them Earth hears them. Tell them we're coming. The prison station was empty now except for detained Vrelics personnel. Medical ships were carrying thousands of freed beings toward safety. The Cheonsa 7 crew stood together on one of the evacuation vessels, watching the human fleet arrange itself for the journey home. Captain Tae-sung turned to his people. "We survived. All of us," Hana smiled despite her injuries. "Of course we did. We're human. We're too stubborn to die." Around them, alien beings watched these strange creatures who had crossed the galaxy for 23 of their own and freed thousands of others in the process. They began to understand something important about humans. They were dangerous. They were determined. And they kept their promises. You didn't want them as enemies. But as friends, as allies, there was no one better to have watching your back. The Galactic Council chamber was older than most civilizations. Built by a species long extinct, it floated in neutral space, a place where representatives from hundreds of worlds could meet without fear of violence. The chamber had rules ancient and respected. No weapons. No threats. Only words, but words could be weapons too. Ambassador So Young stood before the assembled representatives. She was young for such a position, barely 40, but Earth had chosen her carefully. She had a gift for speaking plainly, for making complicated ideas simple. Behind her, on massive displays, footage played. The battle at the prison station. The liberation. The Vrelics' defeat. The council members watched in silence. They had all seen the broadcasts that Woojin and Echa had sent across the galaxy, but seeing it presented formally with context and evidence made it undeniable. The Vrelics' representative, a different one since Commander Thexeral was awaiting trial, tried to speak first. "The hierarchy objects to this unprovoked attack on our sovereign territory. These humans have violated galactic law by entering our space with military forces." So Young didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Sovereign territory? Let me show you what we found in your sovereign territory." The displays changed. Images of the prison station. Cells packed with beings from dozens of species. Children, barely old enough to walk, chained and waiting to be sold. Medical experiments. Torture chambers. The evidence of centuries of exploitation. "These are not prisoners of war," So Young said. "These are slaves. Civilians taken from their homes, from trade vessels, from research ships. Beings who had the misfortune of crossing paths with the Vrelics hierarchy. My people were among them. 23 civilians on a science mission. But we found thousands more who had been there for years. Generations in some cases." The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted at each other, at the Vrelics, at So Young. The council speaker, an ancient being from a species that breathed methane, called for order. "The human makes serious accusations," the speaker said. "What proof do you offer?" "We offer the testimony of every being we freed," So Young said. "We offer the records we retrieved from Vrelics computers. We offer the Vrelics themselves, who we have detained for trial. And we offer this." The displays showed a single image. A human child, maybe 7 years old, sitting next to an alien child of similar age. Both were eating emergency rations on a medical ship, both alive because humans had come for them. "We offer the proof that when you take innocent beings and enslave them, Someone will eventually fight back. We are that someone. The Relics representative stood. The hierarchy has maintained order in our sector for 5,000 years. We have the right to claim resources, including biological ones, from worlds within our sphere of influence. So Young turned to face him directly. And we have the right to protect our people and anyone else you decide to enslave. Let me be very clear because I want no misunderstandings. Earth is not asking for your permission to exist in this galaxy. We are informing you of our presence. Any species that takes our people for any reason will face the same response. We will come with everything we have, and we will not stop until our people are free. You threaten the entire council? Another representative demanded. No, So Young said. We make a promise. Leave us alone. Leave the innocent alone, and we will be peaceful neighbors. But harm our people. Enslave those who cannot defend themselves, and you will learn what humans are truly capable of. The chamber fell silent. They had all seen the battle footage. They had seen what human weapons could do. They had watched a species barely known to the galaxy defeat one of the major powers in this sector. The council speaker spoke carefully. The human makes a compelling argument. The evidence of Relic's crimes is substantial. However, her threat of violence violates the principles of this council. With respect, So Young replied, this council has allowed the Relics to operate for millennia. You knew about the slaves. You did nothing. So forgive me if we don't trust this council to protect the weak. We will do it ourselves. She left the chamber to shouting and chaos. Her message had been delivered. Back on Earth, the Cheonsa 7 crew tried to return to normal life. It wasn't easy. Tae-sung retired from space service, choosing to spend time with his family, who he'd thought he'd never see again. But nightmares came often. Memories of the cell, of the beating, of the moment he thought they were lost. His daughter found him one night, sitting in the dark. She was 12, old enough to understand what had happened. Dad? She said quietly. Are you okay? Tae-sung pulled her close. I'm here. I'm alive. Because thousands of people I never met decided I was worth saving. How do I pay that back? You tell people what happened, she said. You make sure no one forgets, he did. Tae-sung became a speaker, traveling to schools and military academies. He told his story. Not the heroic parts, but the scared parts. The moment when he thought hope was lost. The moment when the station shook and he realized Earth had come. We're human, he would tell audiences. That means we don't abandon each other. Ever. Remember that. Hana joined the diplomatic corps. Her experience gave her insights others lacked. She worked on establishing relationships with the freed species, building alliances based on mutual protection rather than exploitation. Woojin and Aicha, the technician from the station, formed a research partnership. They worked on bridging human and alien technologies, creating systems that could help prevent future atrocities. They married 2 years after the liberation, in a ceremony attended by beings from 15 worlds. Jiwoo expanded her medical knowledge, studying alien physiology. She established exchange programs, teaching human medicine while learning from other species. Her work saved lives across the galaxy. Navigator Daehyun wrote a book. The Day Earth Went to War became a bestseller, translated into hundreds of languages. He wrote honestly about the fear, the captivity, the moment of rescue, but he also wrote about the hope that sustained them, the certainty that humanity would come. Admiral Kyung-soo oversaw the expansion of the Terran Defense Fleet. New ships were built, better than before, incorporating lessons learned from the battle. They were named after concepts, not just historical figures. The Liberation, the Second Chance, the Unbroken, each name a promise. The fleet grew, but not for conquest. Earth made that clear. They patrolled shipping lanes, responded to distress calls, offered protection to species that asked for it. They became known as the species that kept its word. Commander Thexral faced trial for crimes against sentient beings. The evidence was overwhelming. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, along with hundreds of other Vrelic's officials. But interestingly, many Vrelic citizens began speaking out against the hierarchy's practices. The humans had started something, a change in thinking that spread through Vrelic space. Within 5 years, the hierarchy collapsed. Internal rebellion, combined with external pressure, tore it apart. The species enslaved for generations found freedom. They rebuilt, and many sought alliance with Earth. Ambassador So Young negotiated treaties with 47 species in those 5 years. each one based on simple principles: mutual defense, free trade, and absolute protection of civilian populations. It became known as the Earth Charter, and it changed how the galaxy operated. 10 years after the liberation, a memorial was unveiled on Earth. A massive statue showing a human Marine in armor, carrying an alien child to safety. At the base, names were inscribed. Every being freed from the prison station. 23 human names at the top, followed by thousands more. Captain Tae-sung stood before it with his crew, now scattered across the galaxy but reunited for this day. They stood with Admiral Kyung-soo, whose fleet had saved them. They stood with Colonel Jae-hee, whose Marines had fought through hell for strangers. They stood with hundreds of freed beings who had traveled from across space to attend. Tae-sung gave the dedication speech. His voice was strong, clear. "We didn't choose to be warriors," he said. "We chose to be protectors." The galaxy learned that day what happens when you mistake our compassion for weakness. We are Deathworlders, born on a brutal planet that taught us to survive, to endure, to never abandon our own. We are human, and that means something. It means when we give our word, we keep it. It means when our people need us, we come. It means we will face any odds, cross any distance, fight any enemy to protect those who cannot protect themselves. He paused, looking at the statue, at the names, at the faces in the crowd. And now the galaxy knows. When Deathworlders come for you, there is no escape. When humans make a promise, it will be kept. We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest. We are not the oldest or the wisest. But we are the ones who will cross the galaxy for 23 of our own. And along the way, we will free everyone else who needs it. The crowd stood in silence. Then slowly, beings from 100 worlds began to applaud. They understood. They had seen it proven. Across the galaxy, monitoring stations listened carefully now, not for threats, but for one specific signal. The emergency broadcast from Earth. Because every species knew that when humans received a distress call, they would come.